Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crain, the fastest growing sports show in the nation.
I'm Coach Hugh Freeze.
This is Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham.
Hey, this is DJ Shockley, and you're watching.
And thanks for watching the Jboy Show.
Hello, everybody, and thanks again for joining us on another edition of the Jboy Show. Excited to talk some more college football. Going to talk some SEC. Going to get a little bit outside of the SEC with a team sent a tweet out on social media of the Brooks Koepka eye roll for Notre Dame. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, I do got to give a shout out to our partners at betonline.ag as usual. The best in the business, the best sign-up bonuses. The online casino's open 24/7. Head over there, whether you play parlays, props, team props, player props. They've got everything. They're going to put the sharps out. They're not going to grind it down. They're going to play you early. I'm a parlays guy. People think I'm crazy. I'll go straight up every now and then. Took Giannis 47.5 player prop in game 2 against the Trailblazers the other night. He smoked that one, almost had it by the third quarter. So make sure you head over to betonline.ag and tell them that Jboy sent you. I'm very excited to bring in college football writer for Sports Illustrated and SI Now. Very opinionated, excited to pick his brain, Mr. Ross Dellenger. Ross, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yeah, no problem.
Definitely. Well, I want to start in the SEC, and I want to start with Jimbo Fisher. And again, we talk a ton about Alabama, Nick Saban and Georgia and Kirby Smart, some of the new hires in the league. But what Jimbo Fisher's doing at Texas A&M, it's amazing. When the Longhorn Network got started, Texas A&M bolted for the SEC and then ended up looking like the right decision. Do you think Jimbo's building a monster that can last in College Station, Ross?
Well, I think, one day we're going to look back at Texas A&M kind of like we look back now at LSU in the days that LSU was very mediocre, and they, Nick Saban went there and kind of awoken, if you will, the sleeping giant. And I think A&M is something somewhat similar to that. It is in a rich football crazed recruiting territory. It has incredible resources from the alumni giving part of this and the facilities. And it just kind of had to put everything together, needed a leader to put everything together. And Nick Saban did that at LSU. Les Miles followed, and Jimbo Fisher seems to be doing that at A&M. I mean, it has all the ingredients, right? And we're seeing, maybe we're seeing it come to fruition. Last year, obviously just missing the playoffs. And so it feels like they're right on the cusp of being a yearly challenger for a national title.
Yeah. And in the toughest division in college football. And I've had Billy Lucci from Texags on, and we've talked with a lot of people that cover the SEC. And, Jimbo's really building that team from the inside out. And not a lot of people talk enough about the defense. I mean, they led the league last year defensively. What Mike Elko has been able to do as the defensive coordinator there in a very tough league in a short period of time is really impressive. But I almost put him and Mark Stoops in the same category because they've almost taken the same blueprint. Obviously, Kentucky offensively with Eddie Gran was kind of primitive, I guess you could say. But can you just speak to Jimbo Fisher understanding that this game is won up front and on defense and not just Johnny Manziel running around, closing his eyes, throwing it to Mike Evans?
Yeah, that's what people don't, really understand about Jimbo Fisher is that, he comes from the Nick Saban school, the Bobby Bowden's school where, you've got to win in the trenches sort of thing. And you got to win playing good defense and running the ball. I mean, Jimbo is not this throw it around spread guy. I mean, he obviously has incorporated those concepts in his offense, but he is a pro style offensive coach, and he certainly knows, especially in the SEC, where you've got to be really good, and that's the line of scrimmage. And it really is. It's kind of an overshadowed part of Jimbo. We always want to talk about, his quarterbacks and his quarterback coaching and being the quarterback guru and passing the ball around. But really, for Jimbo, it really starts at running the football on offense. And his teams have always been built that way. Like I said, he's incorporated obviously concepts from the spread, like everybody has. But before he got to A&M, the problem with A&M wasn't really offensively.
No.
It was on defense, and it was offensively running the football. Certainly, there were years where they were some of the worst nationally, I believe, in rushing offense and in defensive scoring. So those are areas that had to be improved, and Jimbo has done that. They are they're the way they attack defensively, the way they play, especially on the back end, man-to-man defensively, and then, of course, the way they've run the football, he has changed kind of the culture there at A&M.
Yeah. And I wonder, Ross, and my last question about the Aggies, I want to move to the Mississippi schools next. And you said, building a challenger in the West. Do you think right now that Jimbo Fisher has positioned Texas A&M better than LSU? Obviously, Auburn's going through a coaching change, but really better than anybody in the West to try and start to chip away at the mantle that Nick Saban and just the grasp that Nick Saban has had on the SEC West as we move to the twilight of his career. Does Jimbo, they have the resources, we know that. Does Jimbo have the juice, you think, here down the road, if they keep recruiting this well, to have a chance to knock off Nick Saban a little bit?
Well, it sure seems like they're the next competitor to rise to that stage. We've seen Auburn do it inconsistently. We've seen LSU do it inconsistently. But when you look, as you mentioned, Auburn has had a new coach, and LSU coming off a 5-5 year. It would seem to be that A&M is that team. Now, Jimbo lost some guys, obviously, especially at quarterback, and that's going to be interesting to watch unfold this camp. But pretty clearly they feel like the number two team in the West, and it's all going to come down to those individual games against Alabama and against LSU, because I agree. I think they are the next challenger, and if anybody's going to challenge Nick Saban, it's going to be his former assistant who knows or thinks he knows how to beat him. I mean, of everybody that played Alabama this past year, I feel like A&M played them the best, and even though it wasn't that close of a game, it felt like it was somewhat close, or closer than any other game that they
and
played.
They had Waddle. Bama had Waddle then.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, which, you can only imagine that offense broke records. Imagine if they had Jalen Waddle as well. I actually think Jalen's going to have the most success at any wide receiver in that class. But, Ross, I want to move to the Mississippi schools because I think this dynamic, and we knew when the hires were made, I don't know if there's two more dynamic personalities sharing the same state in the college football landscape than Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin. We've had Mike Leach on the show. Hopefully getting Lane Kiffin here sooner. I'm going to have to stand outside his house throwing clipboards up in the air until he walks outside. But when you look at those two schools, Ole Miss right now defensively, we all know the struggles they had last year. They've upgraded that roster. Are you taking Lane Kiffin or Mike Leach over the next 3 years?
Ooh, yeah, it's
it's a tough one. I don't have a lot of great questions, Ross, but that's one of them.
Yeah, it is. That's a tough question. You feel like in recruiting, Lane is already starting to, for sure, move the needle a little bit. He's winning some recruiting battles over a lot of other programs that normally would beat out Ole Miss for a kid, and so certainly he's got that going for him. We saw the air raid have struggles last year. I mean, it had its highs, but certainly beginning the year with LSU and that big win. But then it really kind of fell apart, and it's going to be a struggle because Mike, probably unlike Lane, Mike is going to have to get his guys in to kind of fit the system, so to speak. He's always done at the air raid, so it always takes a little longer with him. I mean, you can look at every single stop he's had. It's taken 3 to 4 years for them to get going. So immediate impact in the wins column, it probably is going to be Lane, and we've seen that in recruiting just on the trail, and some of the guys he's gotten that can be immediate impact players.
Yeah, and it's you're exactly right. Mike, he's kind of like wine. He gets better with time. You have your ups and downs. He'll beat teams he's not supposed to beat. I'm just interested to see, and it's been the question that's followed Mike Leach. Does the run game expand at all? And can you really run that true air raid style in this league and have success against anybody other than Bo Pelini that won't get out of man coverage because for some reason they didn't insert zone in their install, which that's neither here nor there, and it's in the past. But Ross too, and I know we're SEC West heavy right now, but I want to keep it there. You look at LSU, Miles Brennan, Max Johnson. They bring in Jake Peets. He's running a different style of offense. I think you're going to see a little more zone read from the quarterback and see some more RPOs. It was a staple of their offense in 2019. I think they're around 25% of their offense was RPO based with Burrow, even though you really could have ran whatever you wanted. You could have a cup of coffee as the offensive coordinator with some of the talent they had. Not a knock against Joe Brady. But when you look at LSU and you look at the hires they made, do you think they kind of go on a redemption tour this year after kind of falling flat during what was a crazy year last year and losing all those opt-outs?
Well, it certainly feels like it's going to be better than 5-5 or a 500 record. You mentioned the quarterbacks, and they got two pretty good options that I think they are comfortable with. Miles Brennan has been around the program for 4 years, and he was pretty prolific in the 3 or 4 games that he started last season, and he got hurt, and he's, I think, pretty much recovered from that injury. They expect him to be full go, it sounds like, during the summer and fall camp. And then Max Johnson, who stepped in as a freshman and really impressed. I talked to Brad Johnson, his father, after their big win at Florida, and I was there for that game. And it was impressive in a hostile environment like that against certainly a defense that's very talented. He really shined, and he made the right decisions. So they've got kind of a prolific quarterback, and they've got a younger guy who really makes really good decisions, specifically for his age, especially for his age. It's really impressive. So that is taken care of. The big thing, as you mentioned there with Bo Pelini, is the defense. And they obviously, their defensive coordinator search was very much criticized. They went down the list of candidates, and it was it was an issue at times. And I think that it's going to be a pretty big change defensively, and they need that. They need a big change. They lost some guys, but they also brought back quite a bit. Actually, a lot of guys came back, for their super senior kind of year, and a lot of juniors decided not to go pro as they normally would at LSU. Right. So there's some talent there for sure. I would imagine that they would be better than 500 for sure.
Yeah. I would definitely take the over in that one. It was so odd watching LSU be bad on defense, especially in the secondary. They're basically DBU. I mean, you look at all the guys they have in the league. Watching the Super Bowl is just like watching LSU players tackle each other the whole game. But speaking about deciding to come back or go, if you want to find the best way to keep up with your favorite players from your favorite team that went to the NFL and soon the NBA and soon Major League Baseball, there's an app for you. It's called ProU. It's an Android, iOS, anywhere you can download an app, and it's free. And you need to get it while it's free, because instead of having to scour the internet, how's this guy doing, having to read write-ups, this, that, and the other, they let you pick your favorite team, the players from that college that go to the pros. You're going to get live alerts, injury updates, breaking news, fantasy stuff, anything that you want to keep up with from the players that take it to the next level from your team. Because a lot of people love watching the guys that go to the next level from their team. It's a thing of honor when you're seeing them introduce themselves before the game and saying the school, and it just makes it a lot more efficient, a lot easier. And I know that's what we want nowadays. That's ProU. Download it now while it's free. Just trust me, it's blowing up. You're going to see commercials for it. You're going to see it all over social media, but get in while the getting's good. That's ProU, and it's fantastic stuff. It's so efficient. It's easy to navigate. Download that now. We're here with college football writer for Sports Illustrated and SI now. I don't know what SA now is. Mr. Ross Dellenger, talking some SEC. And I want to ask about the new hires, Ross. And I want you, if you don't mind, you look at, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. We can talk about that. That's great. He's battling uphill. They're doing it an interesting way over there. But between Josh Heupel, Shane Beamer, and Brian Harsin, which one of those hires did you like the best? Which one of those hires did you like the worst? Or did you dislike the worst, I guess you could say, and why?
Well, I'll say I'm certainly surprised, even though I probably shouldn't be, that Danny White brought over Josh Heupel. And I know that, they obviously worked together at UCF, and he hired him there, so it shouldn't be a surprise. But during that search, I expected it to go a different route. And I think a lot of the reasons it didn't probably is because some coaches probably didn't want to get involved in the kind of messy situation they have at Tennessee. And so that explains a lot of it. I'll be really interested in how that one goes. Not only do you have the NCAA sanctions coming down, but so, you have issues with player attrition that are just
it's a stopgap to me. It's a stopgap hire to me. That's just for the reasons
and
you
it
just listed.
Might be right. The old gap hire for sure. I could see that coming. So I think my favorite hire was Auburn, just because they got a guy that has won so much at, I know it's a group of 5 program, but Boise competed with the power programs in a lot of ways, and he did a great job up there. And I actually went and visited Brian in Auburn a couple months ago, and he's certainly got a plan. He's got there's going to be somewhat of a roster overhaul there. I think it's somewhat needed, and so and he's going to get players. The problem is, of course, he's unlike the other 2 you mentioned, right? He's in the SEC West, and it's just incredibly difficult.
Yeah, and again, you're coming in at a pretty hot time when you're looking at Auburn's rivals, what Georgia's doing there with Kirby Smart. Obviously, the cathedral and the program that Nick Saban has amassed over there in Tuscaloosa, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. But, Ross, when you look at the East, and as we're kind of winding down, I do want to shift to the East. Georgia looks like they're going to be ahead of the pack. They look like the best team depth-wise, even without George Pickens. I think JT Daniels and Todd Monken finally got Kirby Smart in a position where he can trust the offense. They can open it up even more than what they did, because you saw last year when they did. I mean, JT was able to really do some things offensively, throwing for 400 yards. But in that second tier, I had Kentucky finishing second in the East. I just don't believe Florida can replace all that defensively. There's a lot of questions and pressure. Do you think that Florida is going to be the team to rival Georgia in the East this year, or finish underneath them, or is Kentucky or Missouri going to be able to sneak in there?
Well, Kentucky has Mark has done an incredible job there. It's been awesome to kind of see him revive a program to the level and get back to the level that it was when Rich Brooks was there and built that thing. It's been cool to see, and it would be pretty cool if they finish second in the East. It would be quite remarkable seeing that Florida and Tennessee and those schools are in that division. I definitely know what you're saying. If Florida has a ton to replace, and it's going to be very difficult. I don't know what their losing offensive production was, but it's got to be like 90% plus.
Damn near all of it, Ross. Damn near all of it.
Yeah, it's incredible. So it is. It's going to be difficult to replace them, and you wonder if, as you mentioned, Missouri. You wonder if a Missouri might sneak in there. Drinkwitz has them. They played pretty well last year. They won a couple of games that many didn't think they could win. So it seems like they do. He has them going in the right direction, and I'll say that I'd give maybe even the better nod to maybe Missouri creeping up there. And I don't know where those games are against Kentucky and Florida, if they play a Missouri or not, but certainly those are ones to circle.
Yeah, if Missouri can figure out that front seven defensively, I love Basilak. I like what Eli does. I've talked about it a ton on this show offensively with the motions and being able to figure out what coverage people are in. And I look at their schedule, and who'd have thought, Ross, a couple years ago that we'd be looking at Missouri and Kentucky week 2 going, that's can't miss football right there, baby.
That's right. Usually that game is circled in January or February on the hard court.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now we're it's interesting the way things have flipped, and a lot of it is because obviously South Carolina and Tennessee now for a while have been down, and Missouri and Kentucky have kind of rose up in front of them.
Yeah, it's funny there for a little bit during basketball season last year. I was almost going to say that Kentucky may win more games in football than they did in basketball, but they snuck a few there at the end, which, I mean, again, I'd have had to walk outside and make sure there wasn't a meteor or aliens landing on the White House lawn or something like that. But, Ross, my last question for you is one that's been a hot topic. It's going to continue to be a hot topic, and that's talking about the expansion of the college football playoff. I've had guys on here. We've done debate-style shows. I think it should go to 8. I think it'll increase parity in recruiting. We all know how recruiting nowadays is a business. It's not the old days where you grow up rooting for this team. You're probably going to play there, or geographically you're locked in somewhere. That's dissipating by the moment. But do you believe there should be some alterations in the playoff to increase parity, maybe increase some viewership and increase the Christmas in college football? Or do you think you leave it at 4?
Yeah, I think it should be increased. And honestly, when they created the BC, or when they created the football playoff, and they announced that there would be 4 teams and you have 5 Power 5 conferences, you knew immediately that was going to be a problem. And it has been. Obviously, there are times where 2 Power 5 conference champions don't get in. There are plenty of examples of maybe even a group of 5 that might be worthy of playing for a title don't get in. So you need to expand the field, and I think it is going to expand. A couple of weeks ago, we did a deep dive and talked to every 10 of the 11 CFP committee members who will decide, the committee that will decide what a new playoff looks like. And, from what I ascertain, it's probably going to be 8 or 12. And there's probably going to be some kind of automatic qualifying to ensure that Power 5 conference champions get in, and that the best group of 5 team gets in. So I would say one or the other, a big date happening a month from now. The CFP committee will probably get a proposal from the CFP working group on a playoff. And I don't know if they'll present 1 model or 3 models or 8 models, but something tells me they will get a proposal, and those committee members will take it back. And the committee members are the 10 commissioners and Jack Swarbrick, and they'll take it back to their own conferences, discuss, and hey, by the fall or winter, they might present it to the board of managers for approval. And then probably the earliest that we could see an expanded playoff would be 2023.
Yeah. And again, I think they're going to go the route. I think they're going to show more models than an episode of Project Runway. But Ross, again, brother, I appreciate you joining us. Great stuff, man. We got to do this again. I already plugged College Football Writer, Sports Illustrated, and SI Now. Where can they find you on social media as well to give you a follow?
Yeah, you can go. It's just my name, Ross Dellenger, at Ross Dellenger on Twitter, and SI.com. All of our stories, and hopefully we'll have one later this week about where college football coaches, the new place college football coaches go to vacation, which is kind of been an interesting story. Took a trip down to the Florida Panhandle, was able to meet with some coaches, and it's a very, as the summer is heating up, it's kind of a very timely story.
Definitely. Well, if you're going to get your golf in coaching, you better get it in now because it's about to get crazy. But Ross, I appreciate it, buddy. We'll do this again. I appreciate you guys at home. Make sure you go to the jboyshow.com, grab some of that merchandise, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go download Pro U. Trust me. Go download Pro U. I know a lot of our audience wants to keep up with that. It's been another edition of the Jboy Show with Ross Dellenger, Sports Illustrated, and Jboy's going. Gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, Technical Director Dave Hammock, Creative Director David Culbertson, Audio Engineer Feyzan Shareef, Production Assistants Blaine Crain and Kyle Orr, Executive Producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, Steve Chamberlain, and David Cohn. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, thejboyshow.com, for updates regarding our newest apparel and merch designs. Win the water cooler with the Jboy Show.